All right. Hey, welcome back to Winning with the Home Team. This is episode 36, and we have started another episode season.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is number 4. Is that right?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And we have some new sponsors. One from last season, and then another one that's brand new this year. So the one that's back from last season is Exquisite Landscaping and Irrigation. If you're looking for a top-tier landscaping and irrigation company in the DFW area, Exquisite Irrigation handles all of it. So visit their website, exquisitelawns.com. And thanks, Exquisite, for sponsoring.
Yeah, this week's Player of the Week sponsor is kind of a no-brainer. It's Lionheart. Their children's academy is fantastic. They are an experience, safe, loving, and Christ-centered care at Lionheart Children's Academy. They've been serving families for over 10 years. Their programs are phenomenal. Their kiddos are phenomenal. The teachers are phenomenal. Lionheart is great, and they have graciously agreed to sponsor the Player of the Week this year because they care.
Yep, let's go.
Yep. So, let's talk a little bit about youth sports because that's what we do here.
Yeah.
We do a lot more than talk about youth sports, but today we're going to talk about youth sports, and we're going to talk about something that I think is it can be a heavy topic if we make it so. Probably needs to be a heavy topic, but we're going to keep it sort of light, and that is
truthful.
And truthful. Yeah.
Both.
There is love and truth, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about parent involvement, which, man, I really feel like the last several days, maybe week or so since we've gotten closer to this episode, God has really revealed a lot of things to me, all the way up into to this morning, actually. But we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you first.
Yeah.
You have a child who is beginning her journey.
Yeah.
And she is playing athletics. What is your goal for Taya? What is your goal athletically for Taya?
Well, I mean, this question really isn't that fair because I have our podcast notes.
Yeah.
What's my goal for Taya? I would say primarily to get the energy out. Man, Taya is so like she, there's kids that are wired more on, the sit down, the creative style. But man, Taya has tons of energy and she desperately needs to get that energy out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, as I'm sure most kids do, right? But we have found that Taya sleeps better, her mood is better, all those things when she gets energy out, when she's running, when she's playing. Usually when she's playing, she's having a good time. And so, I think that you take that and then you relate it back to fun, right?
Yeah.
She just wants to have fun. We started our soccer season last week and, her dad is coaching again. And, I look over, I'm probably about 50 yards away. I look over and Taya is on the ground, crab walking. And coach is not telling them to crab walk. Like coach is telling them
all
to.
On her own.
Yeah. So, I would say, primarily at this age, at 5, it's to get energy out. She has so much energy. And, if you have a child at home and they're in school for, like 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours, like they need that release.
Yeah.
They need it so bad.
Okay. So very practical answer. I love that answer. It's a good answer. Now let's fast forward. Let's just say 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's 5th, 6th grade. Has it changed any? Are you still looking for activity for her, or are you looking for something
100.
different? Yeah.
Still activity for her. Yes.
Are you emailing university coaches
No.
at that point?
No, not in 5 years. No.
So when we talk about youth sports, we obviously right now we're talking about like our leagues and the age groups that we have, which are elementary school kids.
Yeah.
But also we're going to rope in junior high and high school into this conversation. I'm going to give you some stats. According to a 2019 Harris poll,
Okay.
40% of dads expect their child to become a pro athlete. 40%. And let that number sink in. Almost half of the dads out there expect their kids to go pro. And we're going to talk about some stats about how realistic that is too.
Yeah.
67% of parents hope that their kids earn a college athletic scholarship.
Okay. Yes. I hear this. I 100% believe that these stats are correct.
Mm-hmm.
But like my mind goes to the question, like, why is this? Like, why is this the case? And we can talk about two different routes. We can talk about the route of, parents living vicariously through their child. Let's say that dad didn't make it, as a college athlete, or he didn't make it as a pro athlete, and he's living vicariously through his child. We can go that route. Or what I've been thinking about most lately is like the reason, deeper in the reason why. And I think that like that culturally, like that's what's put in front of us.
Yeah.
Like I spent literally 3 hours last night watching both Elite Eight, girls games, women's games.
Yeah.
And that meant Taya did too. She
Right.
watched it with me. Right. I loved that, by the way, that she was engaged with watching the game. But like it's what's in front of us. Yeah. Like it's what we value.
Right.
And so yes, I get it. Is that ridiculous? Absolutely, it's ridiculous, because you'll go in further later and say, out of those, how many
let's
actually
do it right now.
Yeah.
Let's do it right now. So these are statistics from the NCAA themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 in every 610 high school baseball players will be drafted. That is 0.16%.
So small.
0.16%. Okay. So you say, okay, well, what about basketball? 1 in every 10,399, which is 0.0096%. How about female basketball players? 1 in every 12,873 high school female basketball players will be drafted. That's 0.0077%.
Yeah.
And then football, huge in Texas, right? 1 in every 3,960 high school football players will be drafted. That's 0.025%.
Yeah.
Those numbers are crazy. So let's talk about playing in college, because maybe you don't want your son to go pro. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm a realist. They're not going to be professional. Yeah. They're going to go to college, right? Yeah. They're going to play in college. Okay. So of high school athletes for men's basketball, only 3.5% of high school male basketball players play in college. Yeah. And this is all levels. Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, all of it.
Right.
Football, 7.3%, which is the highest at 7%.
Sure.
Baseball, 7%. Softball, 5.6%. Mm-hmm. Ladies basketball, 4.1%. And female soccer, 7.2%. Mm-hmm. So none of these go above 7%.
But
none of them. 93% at best, 93% are not going. 1.8% of high school athletes make it to the Division I level. 1.8%.
Yeah.
Okay, so you look at some of those stats and you think, okay, mirror that with 67% of parents saying, man, I hope my kid gets a college scholarship.
Right.
Right. And those numbers don't really jive very well.
Yeah.
So something is off.
There's a discrepancy.
Yes. And we got to figure out what to do about that. Because we're trying to pour all these kids, which now we're going to get into talking about the role of parents and our kids' lives. And, I was always told, shoot for the moon. And if you don't make it, you land amongst the stars. Right. That was what I was always told. And I get the thought process behind that. Like, you want to have big dreams, you want to have big goals. But we also want to be realistic.
Yeah.
And I have 5 children, most of which played athletically, or are currently playing. And man, my perspective has changed so drastically over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into that. But I wanted to bring your attention to a video that I watched. I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
It's on it's called I love to watch you play.com. And it's about parenting and sports. And what they did was they took all of these children in the age range that we're talking about, and they just basically asked them, what do you think about your parents watching you play? What do you want from them? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And so I just wanted to cover some of these quotes. This is straight from the kids.
Yeah.
The first is, I prefer if I play bad, my parents don't say anything.
And from a parenting perspective, what that essentially means is I want to help you, or I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's contrary to just letting a kid play to have fun.
Right. And
now, I think it's important to remember also, we just talked about, college and professional. These are kids that are majority elementary school kids.
Majority,
right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying, you can't give advice to your kids.
Yeah.
But in the scope of what we're talking about here, where you have so many parents they start out from the jump, they're thinking, I want my kid to play in college.
Yeah.
Or 40% of dads saying my kid's going to be a pro. And so that is what they're measuring their performance up against.
Yeah.
Rather than, I want my kid to have the kind of activity that they need. I want them to learn about teamwork. I want them to learn about discipline and things like that. If that is the backdrop for what your conversations are with your child, great. Mm-hmm. But if it is with that hidden agenda of, I got to push you to be in college, I got to push you to get that scholarship, man, that's a tough place to be. And so that's what this child said, I can hear them, and I think in my head, just shut it. I'm trying to focus. Mm-hmm. Like their parents screaming from the stand. Yeah. One kid says, my mom just says, use the backboard. And it's at these ages, the kids are like, yeah, duh. Like, I know, right?
Yeah.
One child said, it annoys me. One child said, I get embarrassed. Yeah. My mom tells me to get in the position my coach told me not to get in.
That's so common. We see that all the time.
Yeah. Let's see. One says, I get tense because mom says you got to get that score.
Talk about pressure.
Right?
That's a ton of pressure.
Do you see that on Saturdays? Whether it's basketball, soccer, whatever?
I mean, obviously, parents want their kids to score. They want them to succeed, right? And so, this is in the context of wanting your kids to succeed. But, I mean, I know that I fall short, and I fall into this trap of, wanting them, to perform successfully.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a parent of a 5-year-old and also super competitive, I want her to have fun at the same time I want them to be successful. But when you're in the stands, and this is what I was saying earlier, going back to the why of it, I think it's super important to always remember as a parent, especially if your kid is in elementary school playing recreation youth sports, it's all about them having fun. It has to be about them having fun, you know, because if they're not having fun, they're not going to come back. They're not going to want to do it. If you're yelling at them, on the sidelines, use the backboard, or, make sure you get that shot, or block out or rebound. Half the kids in kinder through second grade don't know what a rebound is.
No, they don't.
So you can yell rebound all day long.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna understand what it is.
Yeah, and you think as a parent, oh, I'm helping them. I'm helping to learn the game.
Actually, not.
And no, you're really not.
Yeah,
you're really not.
Story.
Yeah.
So we went to the pickle parade.
Yes.
About 2 weekends ago. It's in Mansfield, and there's this big climbing rock that's there, and Taya wanted to climb it, and she did, and I was doing the motherly thing by just encouraging her. Yeah. Let's go, Taya, you got it. Go higher, go higher. And she stopped in midair. We're about halfway up the climbing wall. She stops and she looks at me. This is a 5-year-old, and says, shh. So I'm being super encouraging and positive, but she just wants me to shush.
Just leave her alone.
Shush.
Yes.
Shush your mouth.
Yeah.
That's what she wants from me. No encouraging.
I think that's a direct quote by another child on here,
That's
too.
what I'm saying. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh, okay. All right.
I'm just
here to take pictures.
That's your role. I won't go through all these quotes, but just some of these others that I would highlight. Man, I love this one at the end. One child said, "I just need big hugs."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that, man, that to me, that just says it all.
Yeah.
One kid said, "Please just be my mom and dad.
Yeah.
It makes me happy when you always encourage me."
Yeah.
I think we've talked about it on here where, our role has kind of become or evolved into, after a game, we don't talk about it on the way home. Mm-hmm. I think there was a time when my kids expected after the game, if they didn't perform well, to have the debrief in the car on the way home about, all the things that they did wrong. Mm-hmm. And it took me too long in life to realize, the kind of damage that does. I see a lot of dads that have that talk in the parking lot before they ever even get to the car. Mm-hmm. And I see the dejection on the kids' faces. And again, don't get me wrong. There is a time and a place for correction, and there's a time and a place for having discussions about getting better, but not what's your motivation? Mm-hmm. Is your motivation to, again, get your child to be a pro athlete? What is... I would ask this question of parents. Have you ever sat down and asked your child, what is your goal? Mm-hmm. And if they tell you, my goal is to play and have fun with my friends, are you willing to accept that?
Half the kids that play soccer with us and basketball with us, that it's like pre-K through second grade, maybe even as high as, no, we'll stop at second grade. Their goal is to get those team snacks, post-game snacks.
Yep.
Period.
100%.
Get those LC bucks, go to the concession stand, and sugar up. That's the goal.
That is exactly right.
We got to get through this game, and then we got to get to the concession stand.
Yeah.
Give me my LC buck, and give me some Sour Patch straws.
Yeah.
That's the goal, really.
And at that age, you kind of expect that. But I will go to, for the last couple of years, I've been mentoring some of the baseball player, the seniors at Arlington High School, the baseball players. And you know what opened my eyes is the first group of seniors that I had, and I asked, how many of you guys want to play baseball in college? And only about half of them raised their hand. Mm-hmm. The other half had no desire. Yeah. Like whether it was because they saw the writing on the wall that, the talent wasn't there, or just the opportunity wasn't going to be there, or they just decided on their own. Yeah. It really kind of shocked me that half of the kids in there were like, I don't have any desire to play in college. I'm enjoying my senior season playing high school baseball. And then I have a life ahead of me that I want to prepare for. And so I was just blown away by that, because I expected every kid in that senior class to raise their hand. Second year, same thing. Yeah. Same thing. And I think that we lose perspective on what our kids want, because we're so in tune to what we want for our children. Yeah. And we think we know better, and we think, but having raised 5 kids, man, like I said, I have changed my tune. We're about to talk about select ball and AAU and all those kinds of things. And early on, I was the exact same way. Like, you need to have goals. You need to try to achieve those goals. Work hard. And I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm just saying let's keep it in perspective. My daughter worked harder than any athlete I've ever known in ballet. She was ridiculous. I mean, 8-10 hours a day, every day of the week. And, she's traveling all over the place. And eventually, what happens? She makes it. Yeah. She makes it professionally. Mm-hmm. She signs a contract, and within the year, she's done. Mm-hmm. Absolutely done. And never has she been happier than when she walked in and said, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Because of the amount of pressure that she felt day in and day out, that, hey, for some people, they carry that, they're good with it, and they can do it, and more power to them. But for some people, it just takes a toll eventually. Sitting down and talking with my son, who is currently playing baseball at Arlington High School. He's a junior. And the perspective has just changed. You know, Dad, he wants to do physical therapy. He wants to be a physical therapist. I want to go to college for that. He's a good baseball player.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, if I play, I play. If I don't, I don't. But this is the life that I want for myself. This is where I'm going to succeed.
Yeah.
And it has just opened my eyes to what athletics should be in a child's life. We opened by you talking about what you want for Taya at 5 years old. And as I go back now, I think, man, if I had just carried that same attitude about putting my child's, like, as long as they're not on the couch all the time playing video games
or on their phones
phones, like, let me support what it is that they want to do and not put, you know, like the other 2/3 of the population out there that you got to get a college scholarship. Like that's just rough to me. So how do you feel? Like you're around high school athletes a lot, at Martin High School especially. Do you feel like that's common? Do you feel like kids are playing because they enjoy playing at that age? Or do you feel like they're mostly playing because they feel pressure to go get that scholarship?
I would say what I've seen so far, there's a difference. There's a slight difference between the boys and the girls. I would say the majority of the boys want to go and play professionally.
Yeah.
But there's a lesser percentage of females that think that way. You know, maybe because the skill set hasn't been as strong in recent years as far as girls. So maybe there's a realization that, hey, this is really not really an option for me.
Right.
But, you know, I would say, you know, for the larger part of it, I think the boys, they really want to go and play further.
Yeah. Do you think we're doing a disservice as a society by putting that much pressure on those boys?
Oh, yeah, 100%. But I'll take it back to what I said previously. I mean, I think that, you know, unless you are so intentional with the reality of what we just talked about how, you know, less than, 1% is going to play professionally, whatever sport it is, less than 1%. And you're focusing in on what really matters, you know, academics, maybe a trade, something after school. If you're not focused in on those, I mean, culturally, like, we're just saturated with it.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
I mean, opening day just happened last week with baseball. And so baseball's in season now. And, I was thinking about this earlier, like even the camps that we offer, I mean, we're a sports center, a youth sports center.
Yeah.
But you look at the camps, the summer camps that families sign up for, there's a lot of sports camps, right? There's not really a camp that is entitled How to Be a Teacher.
Right.
Or How to Be a Doctor.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's like STEM camps, right? And there's, there's robotic camps but yeah, there are more camps predominantly that's geared towards athletics than there are academics.
Sure. There are. And I think, like, first of all, I think it's fair to say we're both very pro sports.
Yeah.
Because of what you can learn and what it does teach you. Yeah. And one thing that I love about our programs here is we don't focus on, this is how you get noticed. This is, what we focus on are the things that we think are important, like the teamwork aspect. Yeah. We do our devotionals every week in practice, and we talk about what is it that Christ has to say about this topic. And so we implement that stuff into the sports. It's in our league, which I think is, it's a recreational league. That you see things like, hey, this person hasn't scored all year. Let's get them the ball. And coaches working together to make that happen. And I think that's fantastic. Where you get away from things is, man, let's just talk about select sports, travel sports, AAU, which has really crushed recreational sports.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
And it's so sad. It really is sad. I was looking at researching for this, I was looking at those statistics, and just the amount of players in the last several years that have just disappeared in youth sports is amazing, because of the influx. And I'll use baseball, for example, because that's what my kids are playing right now. Select baseball, travel baseball. If you want to play baseball, you got to come up with $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 to play, or else you play in, a little league, where there is very little talent now, because any kids that have talent are going and playing in these most of the kids that don't have talent are playing travel baseball now.
Yeah.
And so,
as long as you get the cash.
Yeah, it's about the money, which creates these financial strains on families. And the families that just don't have it, the kids just don't play. And we have gotten away from what recreational baseball was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Or recreational, you fill in the blank.
Well, and let's stop right there for a second,
Yeah.
because the name of our podcast is Winning with the Home Team,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so, I think that you mentioned a very important aspect, and that's, parents sign their kids up and they dish out tons of money, and then it becomes a financial issue, maybe in their marriage or, in their family, and then they got that to I guess deal with, right?
Yes.
So, but again, I will say, we've mentioned this before over and over again, but just the trap of trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Right.
trying to keep up with, little Johnny's friend who is going to play select ball, and Johnny just wants to be with his friend.
Right.
Maybe he wants to play baseball because his friend's playing baseball. But if you're a parent, we're talking about parenting. If you're a parent, you don't have to play what little Johnny's playing, especially at the level of select ball. Do what's right for your family, not for little Johnny.
Man, okay, so you just hit the key point, and that is prioritization of family.
Yeah.
And we have gotten into a place, I think, in society where, okay, I had this conversation with someone yesterday. What if it's not that we want to find the college scholarship? What if we've gotten to a place in society now where parents think, you know what, these are our vacations. We enjoy being around other families. And, in the meantime, we can watch our kids play, but we can go to the hotel, hang out by the pool with the other families. We can go travel to Florida with other families and have fun. We can, hey, we're doing church on Sunday after games. We meet together after a ball game and talk about a devotional or whatever. But, several weeks out of the summer or the spring, we're traveling with other families, and that's family time. And it's become, we'll pay $2,000 or $3,000 because that is our vacation. And we're enjoying this. And it's just become kind of what you do.
Yeah.
And is that dangerous?
The obvious answer is yes. I've heard a lot of this, in the last, several years of how, going to these tournaments have become your vacations. And I don't know that it's, right to pass judgment on that. But again, you're centering everything around a sport and your kid. Is it truly about taking a vacation or even having a vacation planned for you? Let's say that there's a travel tournament in Tampa, right? Or Orlando, and you go and you watch the baseball and you vacate, if you will, a vacation. It's still revolved around your kid playing sports. Again, devil's advocate, right? Well, they're only this age for so long. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure that I'm there. Okay. You can still be there, but that's still not the right conversation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The right conversation is what's best for your family, not for your kid,
Right.
or not even for your own ego, as in, am I being a good mom or being a good dad? Right. I think that you mentioned it. It's all about what we place a value on. And if you don't sit down as a family and make sure that you have your priorities and your values straight before you sign up for anything, whatever you sign up for is going to become your priority.
It's just going to amplify
it.
Yeah.
And you will find ways to make sure that you do whatever you can to do both.
Right.
You can justify doing both.
Yeah.
And again, if you want to do that's fine. But I would just question, is it worth it? Will you have good memories in 10 years? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
How will your marriage be? I don't know.
Yeah.
Good, I hope. I don't know.
Right.
How will your finances be?
Yeah.
I don't know. Good, I hope.
Yeah.
But it's still a ton of money.
Right.
Like a ton of money.
And I hope you said something. I hope that people watching, listening, don't view this as judgment, because guilty. Like, yeah, I went with Colin a few years ago when they traveled to Florida to play baseball, and we played a team from East Texas.
Yeah.
Like we could have met him in Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you travel and you think, okay, well, this will be fun. We'll make a vacation out of it.
Did you say those exact things?
Absolutely,
okay.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I love watching my kid play.
So we're not coming at this as in no experience whatsoever.
No.
Like you have the experience.
Yeah. And looking back on it, do I have memories? Kind of, kind of like, but what continued to eat away at me is, what message am I sending my child that our vacation centers around him at the game, instead of what fun do we want to have as a family, and choosing that. And maybe you would choose baseball. That's fine. But man, it just, there's an erosion there of what's important. And just as a dad, the headship factor, where I need to look at my family and say, what example do I need to set here? What do they need to see? Let me go to them and let's talk about, we made the point we were talking about as a family the other day, like all of the money that I spent on, let's just say for Colin's baseball,
Yeah.
For various, summer ball or fall ball and all that, tournament stuff, easily that's a couple years of tuition.
Yeah.
At a university, right? And so that when he is now 17 years old and saying, okay, I know what I want to do. I want to be a physical therapist. How am I going to figure out a way to pay for college? I don't know, because we went to Florida when you were 11, and spent $3,000 here or $2,000 on this team. And
gosh, Todd, but it's so hard.
It is hard.
It is so hard.
It is hard.
I'm not going to sit here and judge anybody. I mean, I think that having priorities is absolutely important, but it is so hard. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't know what we're going to do with Taya.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that she will have a strong foundation, in a relationship with Jesus, and memorizing scripture as we're already doing, but I mean, I'm competitive.
Sure.
I love to play sports and I love to watch sports.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so does her dad.
Yeah.
But her dad definitely is going to keep me grounded in spending the money aspect of it. He will definitely keep me in check.
Well, let me throw something else at you that is not financial in any way, but it is another factor, and that's burnout.
Yeah, that's true.
Because when you, let's take, again, going back to select baseball or AAU basketball, whatever it is, we have kids that are now specialists, right, in a sport. Mm-hmm. And when you spend that much time playing one sport all the time, eventually you're going to hit a burnout. Mm-hmm. And
it's just natural.
It is.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kids who, when we were growing up, it was you played football in the fall, you played baseball in the spring, you played basketball in the winter, and you were constantly rotating through different sports. But now it's like this competitive nature has now raised a generation of athletes that, man, if I'm even going to make my high school team, I got to play 24/7 in this sport. Yeah. Even when I was in high school, they said, okay, your freshman year, you can play multiple sports. I got to play basketball my freshman year. It was my first love. I loved it. Yeah. My sophomore year, you can't play that anymore because we need you in the off-season program for football. Mm-hmm. And I hated that. Mm-hmm. I hated dropping basketball. Yeah. But we had to do it. And now we're doing that at very young ages because parents look up and say, well, little Johnny, like you said, is playing baseball 12 months a year. Yeah. So now our child has to do it too. And so you get to a place where, like I was talking about with my daughter with ballet, that there is going to be an inevitable burnout that they suffer from because they're just doing it so much all the time.
And we've talked about this too, talking about a recreational league. I think that we have seen the results of kids specializing in a sport sooner than what we did. Yeah. For example, you and I talked about just yesterday about, how we should limit flag football to kinder through
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Yep.
Why? Because fifth and sixth graders are likely they're already specialized in whatever sport they're going to play.
Yep.
Same thing with soccer, right? We're seeing the same things with soccer, right? And again, we have recreational leagues, not they're competitive, but they're not select or club. And I think the only thing that we don't see that in any of our sports is basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's because our basketball leagues are super competitive by nature.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. But yeah, to your point, we are seeing the decline in just the overall value of recreational leagues at a younger age.
Yeah, and I don't want to come at this because we are a recreational league that we're complaining. It's
not
not
at all.
that.
No,
I think
it is what it is.
It is, and I think we both have a vested interest in family.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what this podcast is about, like you said. And from, like I said, I'm not judging parents. What I'm saying is learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
I wish that I could go back and do it all over again. Would my kids still play sports? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would have a different goal in mind for them than I did early on.
Yeah.
To the point now where, my wife is like, how do you feel about Colin saying he's not really pursuing anything in college when he's really good enough to do that?
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Good on him.
Yeah.
Like, I love the fact that he kind of has an idea of where he wants to go with his life and wants to pursue that because he realizes I'm not going to be a Major League Baseball player.
Right.
So, can he have fun in college and play? Yeah. And he might, but he knows where his priorities are. And where I love that the most is for his future wife, for his future kids, that he can responsibly look at it and say, what's important here.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we're coming from. So I saw this and I wanted to point this out. This is the top 10 issues about select or AAU style travel teams. Okay. Number 1, kids should play, not work. And I think we've hit that a lot. Number 2, your kid is not going pro. And by that, we mean the statistics that we've already covered. Number 3, I thought this was interesting. If your kid does go pro, rec ball is a likelier path, playing multiple sports rather than being burned out on one. And we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about this is I've had some conversations with some coaches leading up to this. And you know what they're saying now?
What?
Give me the athlete.
Yeah.
Give me the kid that can play every sport.
Yeah.
We don't want the kid that all they have ever played is this sport.
Yeah.
We want someone who can make adjustments and be an athlete.
Right.
And so one of the things I love about my younger son, who's 14 and he's playing, is their team on Saturdays, when they do workouts, it's basically a CrossFit workout. And they go in there and yes, they'll warm up and throw a little bit.
Yeah.
But every Saturday morning, when they go to the facility to work out, what they're doing is more about being an athlete.
The well-rounded athlete. Yeah.
And I love that. Number 4, your family doesn't need travel ball. Your marriage means more than a sport that your kid plays. And I think if we say nothing else, this is the point that I want to just hit on so much is you said it when we were talking about traveling that it centers around your child when you're doing that. What are your kids seeing? Are your kids seeing that you are placing the importance on your marriage, whether that's from a time perspective, a financial perspective, just an honoring perspective? Like, when is the last time that as a husband you went to your wife and you said, hey, what would you like to see us do as a family? What would let's just take off the table for a second that sports is even a thing this summer. What would you think would be the most important thing that we could do as a family? If we would just invest in that aspect of it.
Yeah. Is your kid seeing that you value your marriage more than your kid?
Right.
Back to those priorities.
Yeah.
They've got to see you investing in your marriage over them.
Yeah.
Because you've got 18 years with your kid, and hopefully way more with your spouse.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah.
They're gonna go. They're gonna go off and do their own thing, but you'll still have your spouse.
Sure.
And are you investing in that relationship? Because that's what we've seen. So many even even in the current league that we're in right now, there's so many families that are struggling, and though I've not asked all of them why, I think it's just natural for for a mom to focus on her kid more than her
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
That is so common.
Right.
Why? Because the kid is mom, 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 mom.
Uh-huh.
And it's this endless to-do list as a mom. But as a mom, like, it's important for Taya to see me back, Dean.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked about this the other day too, that financially, like, man, it was told to us one time early on in our marriage, don't save up for your kids' college before you're protecting your marriage for after the time that they leave the house. Like, pour into your retirement and your savings. College is an afterthought. Because what are you going to do if you save up all that money, you send them to college, and you have no money left? Then what for your marriage?
Yeah.
And the kids need to see that that's more important. They need to see that you are pouring into your marriage and your family from a financial standpoint before you are pouring into college funds. And I'm not saying you can't do both. I'm just saying, from a priority perspective, where are you placing those priorities? Number 5 was your wallet will thank you, which we've talked about extensively. Here's number 6, which even the author says this is probably the most important one. And I don't know which camera to look in, Bobby, but let me just say, you should be in church. And that is not a judgment, you should be in church judgment statement. That is if you want your family to thrive and you believe what it is that you say that you believe, playing every Sunday, whether you do a devotional after the game or not, has an impact. And as someone who has been on both sides of that and who has now come around to understand what kind of impact that has on my family, you should be in church. Not only because you need church, because your family needs church. The church needs you. The church needs for you to be a part of what is going on.
Let me touch on some of the pushbacks with that for a second.
Yeah.
Church is about being in community.
Yeah.
The pushback sometimes I get is, okay, well, my community is my baseball team, or it is who I vacation with. It's those that I'm closest with.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, but is that the community that will point you back to God?
Right.
Is that the community that will help you, that will help give wise counsel? I mean, it's okay for you to have baseball friends, but they're going to be all about baseball. You need different voices in your life to make sure that you're balancing everything appropriately and directly pointed back to God. Another pushback would be, okay, well, we watch TV, we watch church on TV, which is, straight out of COVID times, watching TV, and okay, I guess I can go listen to a podcast. And that's, again, viewing church online is no different than listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Right.
You're not live, you're not in person.
Yeah.
There's something about being in the presence of other believers who are worshiping or who are hearing the word of God that is just different than looking at a TV screen.
Yeah.
So those are two aspects. Community is more than just your select baseball, friends. It's got to be more than that.
I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I do too, for sure.
And I enjoy them.
Yeah.
And I get things out of them. But you know what I get out of way more? My connection group on Sunday morning. When I'm doing life with other families that have children that are my children's age, and we talk about the hurts that they went through, and we go through scripture and there is no replacement for that.
Yeah.
And that's biblical. Like, there is no replacement for that human companionship that gets down into the business. I have never had that kind of experience at a baseball field.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. And been a part of some devotions. Right?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, where do you go to get that life filling, stuff that you need?
Yeah.
And by the way, like, even just from the optics side of things, what are you showing your kids that is more important? Because you can go to the baseball field or the Mexican restaurant after the game and have fellowship with families, and you can say, hey, I'm a Christian. We have God in our life.
Yeah.
But what is the example you're setting?
Yeah.
And hold that measure that up against what Scripture says. And I just, man, it is so life-giving to be here on a Sunday morning. And there's Sunday mornings where I don't want to come. Would I rather be outside with the birds chirping and it's 65 degrees and kids are playing baseball?
The
Absolutely.
one Sunday in the year it's 65 degrees.
Yeah, in Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I get here and I do life with those people, man, gosh, so good.
Good.
Okay, so to finish up, we talked about it's better to play more than one sport and what coaches are saying about that stuff now.
Yeah.
Don't dilute the talent pool in the rec league. Don't cause the rec league to dry up, which we've talked about. We're seeing that now. And then this is the last one, and I love, love, love this one. Don't get seduced. And let me tell you what I mean by that. We have this tendency now to at least recognize the problems with travel baseball or travel soccer or AAU basketball, whatever it is. We recognize it. So what do? We say, you know what? We're going to form a low-key travel team or select team. And we're only going to practice 1, maybe 2 nights a week for an hour, hour and a half. And we're going to keep the costs low. And it'll be kind of a low key because there's no competition in rec league. So we're just going to do this with a group of dads that get together and make a team. And now we go out on a Saturday and a Sunday to play in a tournament, and we get our doors bashed in and just get smoked.
Seduced.
Yeah. And so because we're not playing or practicing as much as the other team.
Yeah.
And so what happens? We say, you know what? I don't like getting embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so let's practice one more night a week.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's up the fees a little bit to get better uniforms to match up against these kids. And before you know it, you're all in. Yeah. And so you get seduced into this. We're just going to kind of half-heartedly go into this kind of thing. And it never ends that way.
It comes from a good place, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people recognize it.
Yeah.
But much like sin, it starts as just this little thing that, it's not that big a deal. And before you know it, you're knee deep in it. So
nobody likes losing.
No one likes losing.
I don't.
Yeah, including me. Yeah.
Well, Todd, this has been good. It's been really good. Thanks for all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I can't say this enough. It's not because we're just throwing this stuff out there. It's because we've been on both sides of it, and
it's because we care about families genuinely.
Yes.
And we see the seduction, if you will, that youth sports lends itself. And we just want the home team to win.
Right. Absolutely.
We don't want our kids to win games, though I love to win and Taya loves to win. We want the family unit to win.
Yeah.
So that comes with just being intentional with every decision that you make with your kid. Today we talked about youth sports, but it's not the end all be all. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening to episode 36. Hey, if you've not followed us yet, go ahead and do that. Follow us, like us, comment. What do you think about what we talked about today? Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good week.
Man, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing us ramble about youth sports or other strangely interesting sports topics related to families, please go and like and subscribe to the show so that you can get regular updates when a new podcast is released. We'd also love to connect with you. Head on over to our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're under LC Sports and Recreation.
And if you're new to our podcast, go check out some of our previous episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's some good stuff on there. And pay attention because these come out pretty quickly, weekly, as a matter of fact. And you're going to learn a lot about what we have to say with regards to our league and how to win with the home team.